So the first big news I wanted to talk about today is Key and Right Flyer Studios finally announced an English version for Heaven Burns Red, which is the new Soshage gacha game mobile on PC from Key and from Maeda Jun, who is the main author of Canon, Clownad, and Little Busters, and Angel Beats, etc. And I've been waiting for this announcement for a very long time because the game was released in February 2022 in Japan on mobile, iOS and Android, and then 6 months later they released it on Steam, and that's when I started playing the game, and I've been playing it since then. And then for the first anniversary, they added to the game Chinese and Korean language support. That was in February 2023. So ever since then, I've been waiting for an English announcement. So I'm really excited for this because this is one of my favorite games of the decade. Like, the story is incredible, and the characters of writing is incredible. So I'm really excited that even more people will be able to play this now. So yeah, I've been playing this since summer 2022 with the Steam release, and it's a really great RPG, story-based RPG. And so yeah, they announced yesterday on the Japanese live streams. Around every 2 weeks, you have Japanese live streams of Heaven Burns Red to share some new details on the upcoming styles, the upcoming events. And I used to do some summaries for these on Twitter, and then I stopped because Twitter became trash. So I need to restart doing this on my new blog. So they opened an official English Twitter as well, and they most notably mentioned the game will be featured this week at Anime Expo at Los Angeles, right, in the US. So I'm really excited. Like, more people will be hearing about it, and hopefully, they didn't specify when it will be releasing yet. So I think it's still several months ahead because this is it's like a visual novel, but with turn-based story battles. So the script of this game is really, really long, and to keep the script is extremely long, and you also have some very complicated sometimes references and sometimes jokes. So it's a really huge ordeal to translate this. Like, I really wouldn't like to be translating this game because there are some really, really difficult things to retranscript, be it like Japanese internet memes or like very specific jokes regarding Japanese culture, regarding old, like, 80s and 90s Japanese TV ads, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's also a really, really, really emotional game. Especially, like, obviously, the slogan is "Embrace the ultimate sorrow," because one of the major themes of the game, of course, is like a lot of bad things happen because it's a post-apocalyptic world. And it's a story of characters fighting about an alien invasion. Like, it's a very, very, very typical pitch for social games, for gacha games. However, it quickly develops into something really amazing and really original, especially when it comes to developing its characters and sharing their emotions and showing their inner conflicts and stuff. It's really, really well written. And so at Anime Expo, they're going to introduce more of the game, and they also announced that Yoastar is publishing the game in English, and Yoastar is also the publisher of Azure Lane in English, and in Japan they also publish Blue Archive. So yeah, I think because of that, this is probably going to be separate servers because Right Flyer Studio and Key aren't handling the English distribution. So it's interesting to note that when they added the Korean and Chinese language in February 2023, they were added directly into the game. Like, it's still the Japanese version, and you can switch languages at any time. It's the same version of the game with the same servers, and the updates are all happening at the same time in Japan, in Korea, and in China. However, with this English version, I assume they're going to make separate servers, I think, since Yoastar is taking care of it. So that's one of the things that we will be knowing, like, at later on. For now, they didn't specify all this stuff. So there's an official site as well. For now, there's nothing like there's just a key visual with the protagonist, Rika Kayamori. So Kayamori is one of the best characters in the game because this is also one of the many peculiarities compared to other gacha games. There's a voiced and there's a face protagonist. This isn't like Arknights, Nikke, Genshin, etc., where you have a silent protagonist and where the protagonist doesn't have their own personality, and all the characters all call them teacher or sensei or doctor or shikikan, commander, or that kind of stuff. You know, it's very different from other Soshage, with how you have a real protagonist and you really play as Rika and you really know her emotions and what she goes through. This is one of the many reasons why this is such an amazing game. So they also published a trailer, so we're going to watch the trailer together. So yeah, this is Key, Maeda Jun. So these are all popular games that Key made in the past, right? And Angel Beats was an anime extremely popular worldwide, so I'm sure like most people heard about it. So I'm happy they included this because this is definitely the most popular thing. Charlotte, I didn't watch it yet. I gotta watch it on the me. Kamisama ni natta hi, I didn't watch it either. I gotta watch it someday as well.
息も止まった心臓も止まったそして全てをしまいにでき私の伝説はこれから始まる私の伝説はこれから始まるハローワールド救世主様のお出ましや真実は一つと限らない呼吸をするように息の根を止めSo yeah, that's the reveal trailer for the English version of Heaven Burns Red. And what the characters you see in the trailer, they're basically the 6 protagonists of the story, because there's a main story focusing on these six characters, which are on a squad together fighting the aliens, and then you have dozens of other characters. You have over 40 characters in total from other squads who also appear in the main story. And in each event, there's a new event every month. And in each new event, you follow a side story from the point of view of another character. And this is one of the stories, definitely like the main appeal of this game. And you also have the battle system, which is a turn-based RPG with really, really fun systems. So I'm really excited to see people discovering it. Also, another thing I already mentioned is that this translation looks pretty good as well, because the lines the characters are saying in the trailer is actually special like magic incantations that they need to say to summon their weapons. These are Lucas weapons, twin swords,
these are called seraphs, and these are the sole weapons capable of harming the aliens. Like it's a very typical, again, it's a very typical gacha game setting. However, it quickly develops into something much more deeper and much more interesting. But anyway, so all the characters are saying there are summoning lines in the trailer, and the way they translate it is that it's really, really smart. So I'm hoping like the whole game will have a really good translation like this. So I'm really excited to see more, and hopefully it's going to release soon. But yeah, I think it's going to take quite some time because these are huge games script-wise, so it must take a huge amount of work to translate everything. So yeah, really excited to see people's reactions to certain stuff in the game, etc. For now, by the way, in Japan, in the Japanese version, we have up to chapter 5 of the story, which is starting chapter 4. The chapters are divided into 2 halves, and right now we are chapter 5 part 1 in Japan, and that was released like 3 or 4 months ago. And every month you have a new story event which reveals new stuff about the characters, etc. And the last thing I wanted to show is that they also published a message from Maeda Jun, the main writer of the game of Heaven Blizzard. So yeah, hello everyone, this is Jun Maeda. You may have heard of the global craze for taiyaki inspired by the work Canon, but are you familiar with its original creator and head writer Naoki Hisaya? I had the honor of being a sub-writer for that project. Naoki Hisaya started the trend of visual novels that make players cry, a pursuit that I have passionately followed for over 20 years. The pinnacle of this journey is Heaven Burns Red, whereas Hisaya has sophisticated storytelling techniques to evoke tears. I took a rather direct approach, and that's the essence of Heaven Burns Red. So when you're reading this message, you can think that Heaven Burns Red is a really depressing game and really sad game, which is true, but it's also extremely wrong, because this is another one of the reasons why this is such one of my favorite games, because this is a good mix of comedy and tragedy. It's just like the example I always brought up is Slayers, the fantasy series from the 80s, 90s. So you often think like it's just a gag series and with jokes and stuff, but it's also got a lot of serious moments, a lot of the really sad moments. So it is very similar to this kind of stuff. It's like really, really incredible mix of comedy and tragedy. You're going to laugh a lot and you're going to cry a lot as well. And to be honest, I don't get that emotional like when playing games, sad games, because like I'm often detached from the story, if that makes sense. But this is one of the few games that even if I like, sometimes it's not like I'm crying of anything. Like when I see some really sad moments, it's not like I start crying or anything. But I do relate with the characters. It's something very important for me as well, because it's really rare for me to actually relate with characters, especially with a character like Ruka, who is a rocker, and she's a really extremely YOLO person. Like she's quite crazy, and this also depends regarding on your choice in the story. There aren't story altering choices. However, depending on your choices, you will get some bonus scenes, you will see some scenes or some other scenes, and the dialogues will change a little bit. And one of the things that changes depending on your choices is Luca's personality. You can make her into a very serious person or a very crazy, always saying some extravagantly dumb stuff all the time. So it's one of the appeals of the game as well. So this is really, really exciting. So let's check the end of the message. So Maeda-san is saying, so to think that this work will be released in places where it sparked the teriyaki craze, such a delightful coincidence feels like fate. We eagerly look forward to sharing Heaven Burns Red with you. Thank you. So yeah, this is a brand new message Maeda-san made for the English announcement. And this is also another one thing I wanted to point out, is that Heaven Burns Red was first announced in 2019, if I remember correctly, or 2020, I'm not sure. And the game was initially supposed to release in 2021. However, it was delayed because they encountered a lot of issues with the development because of COVID, etc. And one thing interesting to note is that back when the game was first announced, Maeda Jun was talking about how the gaming market in Japan has changed and how visual novels and stuff and PC visual novels, ADV games, it's not like it's not the market has shrunk considerably. And in the first place, it was already a niche, and now it's even a smaller market. So if I explaining that in a sense, a lot of visual novels nowadays are on mobile because if you look at games like Genshin, Arknights, Nikke, Blue Archive, etc., all of these games have very, very long scripts and they are very, very story based. They're pretty much visual novels, except they're gacha games now. So the successor of visual novels in the Japanese market are gacha games, and that's why he switched to make this game, Heaven Burns Red, on mobile. And it's been a huge success so far in Japan, in Korea, and in China as well. And it is one of the reasons why Tencent, the Chinese company, they bought Visual Arts as the parent company of Key, because this is one of the reasons why they did this move, because Heaven Burns Red is working really, really well. So Tencent bought Key and Visual Arts. So yeah, I'm really excited for this English release because now I feel finally be able to talk about the game with more people. And one last thing is I used to do summaries of the live streams of the Heaven Burns Red live streams every 2 weeks or so. I used to do them on Twitter, but since Twitter became trash, like I started doing them on my blog. But lately, like this last 7 months or so, I never had the time to do it. But now that the game is coming in English, I'm going to try to do them regularly again. As soon as I can, maybe this weekend, I'm going to try and make a summary of the live streams that happened today. And on July 20th, you also have the 2.5 anniversary events for the game, which will have a lot of all of the seiyuu and all of the seiyuu of the 6 protagonists, and a lot of new stuff getting announced, etc. So I'm going to try to make a summary for that as well. So yeah, that's the biggest news today. I'm really excited. I've been talking about this for 16 minutes already. So yeah, like if I take some examples, like this last decade, like the games that really marked me, like you have 13 Sentinels, like you have, I guess, Genshin in a way. You have, yeah, and Heaven Burns Red is definitely one of these games. So I'm really excited for the English release. So another thing I wanted to talk about is today Furio announced that Reina Cheese is going to have 3 updates. Like after the game releases, they're going to add three DLC updates with some new scenarios and some new wizards. So I guess maybe actually new characters, or maybe new playable characters. I'm not sure what they mean by new wizards. But yeah, and they released a short trailer for this. There are going to be 9 additional scenarios in total. So it's really exciting. So let's check out this trailer as well. So yeah, the game is releasing in Japan in July 25th, and then the first episode is going to release on August 1, and then the second episode 1 month later in September 2, and then the third episode in October 1st. And the third episode is called Secret Episode. We don't know, like they're teasing something about it. It's pretty funny because it reminds me of Kingdom Hearts again, because like secret ending, like secret episode, like is the same terms that KH, the Kingdom Hearts franchise is using. So this is very funny. So yeah, Nojima-san, the main writer, the writer of Kingdom Hearts and most Final Fantasy game, is a writer of Renatis, and it's pretty cool because he really did write a lot for the games if they are doing additional scenarios like this. And they're free too, so this is really nice. And if you look at the trailer, like, I don't think there's anything particular I wanted to say. These are pretty creepy, right?
Yeah, and at the end they're teasing some kind of like girl that's getting like that she's telling Marion, the male protagonist, to run away, and we don't know what's going to happen. So one thing I'm wondering too is are these scenarios are going to take place after the ending or not? I assume not, but yeah, because it's releasing 1 month after the game, I assume that this will be story elements that you should have better cleared the game first before playing these additional scenarios, I assume. They didn't specify it, but yeah, it's probably best to do it this way, I guess. I'm still not sure if I will get Reynardis in Japanese or wait for the English version, because nowadays I rarely play games at release anyway, but I'm also really excited, so I might actually get the Japanese version, I'm not sure yet. So yeah, the game is releasing like in 3 weeks in Japan right now, so I'm really excited. And of course, like the game graphics don't look particularly appealing, but like I couldn't care less. Like I'm always the thing that always cares the most about the games is story, characters, gameplay, etc. So I don't really care about the graphics as long as they aren't really repulsive to me. And I'm fine with these graphics, so I'm really excited for Renatis. So coming up next is you've heard that there's going to be a new showcase for Metaphors ReFantazio, right? Metaphor ReFantazio, which are often nicknamed Metaphor Spirou and Fantasio in reference to a certain French comic. But yeah, there's going to be a new showcase focusing on the story, revealing new story elements. It's like in 30 hours from now. And there's an English and a Japanese version, but it should be the exact same thing. It's just that the English version we have some subtitles. And I'm doing this quick news because I wanted to talk about actually announced this as well. Washagana TV, which is a YouTube channel with the Seiyu Nakamura Yuichi, which is one of the most popular Seiyu ever. He did recently Gojo in Jujutsu. That's his biggest famous role these days. He did tons of other roles in the past. He was Alto in Macross Frontier. He was a bad guy, I forgot his name, in Acrayon Evil. Yeah, he did a lot of roles. He's one of the most popular seiyuu ever, and he's also the official narrator for Nintendo trailers. He's in the Japanese versions of Nintendo Directs. He's the one narrating all of the text. You have Nakamura Yuichi on the show, and you have Mafia Kajita. Mafia Kajita is a freelance journalist and otaku, and he's an MC as well, and he usually MCs a lot of Atlus streams. Nowadays, you often see him on the live streams of gacha games as well. He's the official MC for the Nikkei streams and for the Blue Archive streams. I think Azure Lane streams, not Blue Archive, for Azure Lane. And he works at 4Gamer technically, and 4Gamer is a Japanese outlet. It's one of the biggest Japanese outlets after Famitsu and Dengeki, which are both owned by Kadokawa, by the way. After Famitsu and Dengeki, you have 4Gamer, and 4Gamer is the owner of this YouTube channel, and they're doing this called Washagana TV. And so yeah, so they often do some partnerships with Japanese studios to introduce their games, etc. And so they're doing like a special Metaphor ReFantazio stream a few hours, like 10 hours, around 10 hours after the showcase. They're going to be this. So I'm going to try to watch this and make a summary on my blog. So look forward to this. So yeah, I just wanted to say this. I'm a huge fan of Nakamura Yuichi, and I also really appreciate Mafia Kajita because they also used to be together in the past in another radio show I used to write about on my older blog. It was the Star Radio Ocean show. It was the radio show for the Star Ocean gacha game, Star Ocean Anamnesis, and they used to talk about anything but the game. And it was really fun, and I think this is one of the reason why they ended up making Washagana TV together, because the Star Ocean radio show was basically the prototype of Washagana TV, because they were always talking about what games they played. One thing in particular I remember is when they were talking about Xenoblade 2, back when the game released like 5-6 years ago or something. Nakamura Yuichi is also voicing Metsu, right, in Xenoblade 2. I think I forgot his English name, Malos or something. Metsu, one of the villains in Xenoblade 2, one of a really incredible character in my opinion. So yeah, he also voiced this guy in Xenoblade 2, and they were talking about the game. It was extremely funny. I need to retranslate this one day because I wrote about it on my old blog. It's so cringe now, so I need to rewrite it and retranslate it and republish it one day because it was extremely funny discussion. But anyway, so yeah, once this showcase is done, inshallah, I'm going to translate this as well. So please look forward to it and remember to check my blog later on. So another very big news I wanted to bring up is that Studio BB announced that they've joined Bandai Namco Studios. Studio BB is the developer of the Super Robot Wars series, so I'm a huge fan of this series. It's one of my favorite game series ever, together with Bokujo Monogatari, Story of Seasons, together with a few other things. So I'm quite surprised, to be honest, because I used to think that they were already part of Bandai Namco, so I'm not sure how it works exactly. I'm pretty sure they weren't fully independent, but I guess they weren't officially part of Bandai Namco group until now. So now they officially joined Bandai Namco Group starting this fiscal year, and the presidents of BB Studio said that they are going to keep working on the Super Botwa series, and they're doing SD Gundam games as well, the SD Gundam cross generations. They're the one doing this as well. They're the one doing Gundam Battle Operation as well. So yeah, I'm still hoping that a new Super Robot Wars will be announced soon. Like, I'm really not worried about the future of the series. I've seen some French fans of the series lately saying that it's dead, it's over, etc. I'm really not believing that at all, because 30 was sold really, really well, thanks to its Steam release, worldwide Steam release. And I don't have the source anymore, but I remember seeing it myself on a live stream that the producers were saying that Super Robot 30 was one of the top 5 best-selling Super Robot Wars games ever. So yeah, they are definitely going to make more, and hopefully we're going to get the next OG game soon, because I really, really, really like the OG series, and I really hope we'll get to see more of it soon. So yeah, maybe if I have the time, I'll try to dig the history of the studio and make a detailed article, because yeah, I'm surprised that they weren't already part of Bandai Namco group. But anyway, I'm really hoping that we'll get some Super Robot Wars news very soon. So now it's time to nerd out about the Saga series and the Romancing Saga 2 remake. So like I explained, like on the last episode, every day the official Japanese reader of the Saga series is tweeting some short gameplay clips of Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven to introduce some of the gameplay systems to newcomers. And this time they revealed this is something they already revealed back when the game was first announced, and it's one of the many reasons why it was trending on Twitter, because Romancing Saga 2 is a legendary game, and a lot of Japanese RPG fans are huge fans of the Romancing Saga series. And it was trending because they explained that now you can abdicate your emperor, because Romancing Saga 2 is a specular game where you switch emperors between generations, and the new emperor will inherit the memories and the skills and the stats of the previous emperor. And now they explain that in the remake you can now abdicate anytime you want, except you can only do it once per generation. You can do it twice per generation. And why they put this limitation on is because if you could keep abdicating over and over again, you could immediately make from the beginning a really, really strong emperor, because when you switch emperors and the new character inherits the skills, etc. But for example, you can take a character from a race really good with physical weapons and make them become emperor, and then immediately make them abdicate to switch to another race which is good on magic, and then get the both worlds gets a super strong emperor right from the get-go. So that's why they put this limitation. You can only do it once per generation. You can do it twice. So let's watch this. See, this is a brand new thing, the remake. You can now abdicate to select a new emperor right away. And yeah, and the text is explaining that you can also switch emperor when the emperor character's LPs reach zeros, and because they die, so you need to remove them and change them. And another gameplay that was revealed is the Symbol Encounter. So the original Romasting Saga 2 was also Symbol Encounters, meaning it's not random encounters, meaning you see the enemies on the map, and when you touch them, you enter the battle. And this time, there's a new system where you can do a preemptive strike, which is a very common thing in RPGs nowadays. Is if you hit the enemy, you can deal a little bit of damage when entering the battle. But this is the servers of the capital. And now, see, you can hit enemies to do a preemptive strike. This is a brand new thing. This wasn't in the original game, but besides that, it's the same thing. So yeah, I'm going to keep talking about Romancing Saga 2 Remake because this is one of the few games announcement that really got me excited lately. Besides, like, I haven't been this excited for like 2-3 years since the latest Super Robot Wars game. I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to this remake. Another very short news I wanted to bring up is that July 2nd was the second anniversary of Lycoris Recoil, a very good one-crew anime that aired like 2 years ago now. So the show's character designer, Imugi Muru-san, they tweeted a brand new illustration of Chisato and Takina for the occasion. So they're really cute together. And so yeah, it's already been 2 years. Surprisingly, they announced like a sequel soon after, but a new anime project soon after, but there has still been no new info regarding that. You still don't know if this is going to be a movie or a new TV series. But in the meanwhile, like the franchise got expanded quite a lot and they made stage plays most notably. However, I'm quite surprised that Aniplex, because it's Aniplex behind Rico Rico, if I remember correctly, I'm quite surprised that Aniplex didn't do a Rico Rico gacha game, because gacha games, like mobile market is the biggest market nowadays in Japan, so I'm really surprised they didn't do that. So yeah, it's been 2 years now since it aired. Personally, I like the series. Like, it wasn't groundbreaking. Like, it's not my favorite thing ever. Like, but I did like it. And when I have the time one day, I wanna try to write something about my theory regarding why it got so popular, because I think there's specific reasons why it got so popular. And so yeah, I really like Licorice Recoil. So yeah, time flies. It's already been 2 years since it aired. So in the same vein of anime anniversaries, it was also the 10th anniversary of Piripara, which is part of Pretty Series, the franchise I'm always nerding about. So Pretty Series is initially an arcade game for little girls, and then it developed into a major mix thing with an anime and with movies, etc. And the first thing was Pretty Rhythm, which also has a sequel called King of Rhythm, and then you had Piripara, and Piripara was the second series in Pretty Series. And it's 10 years old now, so yeah, they're doing new merch. Like, this is Piripara is by far the most popular series in Pretty Series, because Pretty Rhythm wasn't that popular, and the thing that followed Piripara, Kirato Pirichan, wasn't that popular either, and same with Watcha Primaji. And right now the brand new airing thing is Himitsu no Aipuri, and I'm not sure yet how is it doing in Japan, because I didn't have the time to check, but I think it's okay, it's doing okay, and they did a new arcade game with it to tie up, etc. So yeah, they announced some new merch they're going to sell it at a pop-up store at Ikebukuro Station. It's only for 1 week, but I assume since Piripara is so popular, like 10 years ago, when the arcade game released, like, you had, like, I think the statistics was like one little girl out of 3 was playing the game or something, was playing Piripara or something. So it was incredibly popular. So I assume they're going to do more on projects. And I think they already announced a new concert. So they're going to do a lot of things to celebrate the 10th anniversary. And this is the usual merch, like these badges and keychains and acrylic stands, etc. The usual merch. So yeah, because I'm a huge fan of Pretty Series, I just wanted to bring that up. And yeah, you should definitely watch it if you haven't. And I really recommend watching Pretty Rhythm, because I think it's the best out of all Pretty Series. It's a really revolutionary anime. It's my favorite anime of the last decade, so I'm always recommending it. So hopefully you would watch it. And we have more anime news. Studio Trigger finally announced new details regarding the Punchy Unstuck King sequel anime. So they actually revealed the title, New Punchy Unstuck King with Garter Belt. So they just added a new, and they finally revealed some of the stuff as well. So like I always say, I'm not a Sakuga Buta. Like I've been watching anime since as far as I can remember, but I've never been like a huge fan of animation itself and animators. Like I don't really know that much about it. But yeah, they reveal the stuff, and Imaichi is a director, so yeah, it's probably going to be nice. The original anime, I liked it, but I think it was too experimental, and I think it was like, I think people give it more credit than it has worth, like because people only remember the good parts, like the transformation sequence, etc. And I think besides these few highlights, the original anime was really, really mediocre. So I'm hoping this sequel would be really good. Will amplify the strengths of the original anime and do some good things with it. They reveal this key visual as well with all the characters. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for this to see how it will turn out. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this. It's been a year, like 2 years, I think. So yeah, in 2023 they announced the new anime project, and since then we had no news, and now we finally got a logo and a key visual on the stuff. So yeah, you should check out like Kevin's Sakuga blogs, etc. I'm pretty sure they're going to talk about this if you want a real analysis, some real experts on Japanese animation from real Sakuga butas. Like I don't think I can say anything particularly interesting, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it and how it will turn out. So another quick anime news is that Ruri, Hoshino Ruri from Kido Senkan Nadeshiko, she's getting a brand new figure, a brand new figure, and she's pretty funny because Nadeshiko aired like almost 30 years ago now. I opened it up here. It was in 1996. So it's almost 30 years now. You can tell Ruri is really an iconic character. She's still getting merch like this, figures like this. Personally, I don't buy figures, but I do like figures, so I like talking about them as well. Especially because it's a good way to see, like, it's a good way to see the history of otaku culture, etc. So yeah, you can tell Ruri is a really, really, really iconic character. That's because you're still getting figures like this. And I think, like, I actually never watched Nadeshiko. I need to do it one day. I feel like I already watched it because I played so many Super Robot Wars games with it, so I know the plot, etc. I know the characters, but actually never watched it. So the problem is with classic older anime like this that I have still never seen, I don't want to watch them alone. So I try to watch them with my family, someone from my family, like my mom or one of my siblings or my niece. But it's pretty complicated to sync up our schedules and stuff. So yeah, I still haven't watched it. I really need to. And yeah, I don't think I wouldn't say anything else. And I guess like maybe in 2026 they're going to do a Nadeshiko remake or something because it's such a popular series. I really wouldn't be surprised if they do a remake one day. More anime and manga news, and I want to talk about the fact that Sento Seiya Next Dimension, it actually ended today. Like the final chapter was in today's weekly Shonen Champion. And it's pretty, I think I started reading this like 2 years ago, and I'm like halfway through it or something. Senseiya, like I'm a huge Senseiya fan. It's one of the most popular 80s series that aired in France. Like sadly, the series never got popular in the US, but like in France and in Italy, of course, and in South America, it's extremely popular series. So I'm a huge fan of it. I watched all of the anime, the original 80s anime, and I read some of the original manga, but I've never read it all. I need to read everything one day and write my impressions on something because this is one of my favorite series ever. And one project I have is that all of my favorite 80s series that I've seen the anime, but I've never read all of the manga. For example, Cat's Eye, for example, Shitianta とか、気まぐれオレンジロードとか、there's a lot of classic 80s anime. I've seen the classic manga. I've seen the anime adaptations of when I was a kid. Bat Labor as well.
but I never read the manga, so I want to read the original manga in Japanese and write my impressions volume by volume on my blog and make some videos and make some content and stuff. But yeah, Saint Seiya Next Dimension is a direct sequel of the original manga. It's pretty interesting because I think if I remember correctly, it started around the same time as Lost Canvas, and Lost Canvas is a prequel of the original manga. And Next Dimension is funny because there's a lot of time travel stuff in it. So it's a sequel, but at the same time, some of the characters travel to the era in Lost Canvas. So it's very funny because it tells some of the things that you've already seen in Lost Canvas. Like, I forgot what was his name, Alon and the Pegasus of the era, and Sasha was the Athena of the era. It's stuff that they talk about in Lost Canvas. They'll talk about it in Next Dimension as well. I remember reading it like 2 years ago, and I was really surprised at how good it is because I've never read this because I was telling myself like maybe Kuramada Sensei, maybe like when it comes to sequels, sometimes they aren't really that good. So I never checked it out until 2 years ago, and I was really surprised how interesting it is. So yeah, when I have the time, I'm gonna try to read the final chapters. Like I'm like 2 or 3 volumes behind or something. And I obtained it up here. So yeah, it was started in 2006, but it wasn't continuous. Like there were many hiatuses, many breaks. So it technically didn't run for 14 years. For 14 years, like it was a bit less than that. Like 18 years. I mean, 18 years. It wasn't running for 18 years. It ran a bit fewer years than that because there were many breaks and many hiatuses. And yeah, where is it? Here. So yeah, Next Dimension is actually really good because yeah, it's a sequel but also a prequel because it's also telling the same story as Lost Canvas but differently. So yeah, it's a really funny thing to read, a really interesting thing to read as a Saint Seiya fan. So like I wonder what's going to happen next now because there are many other spin-offs I've never read. I need to check them out one day as well. So anyway, I just wanted to say this like pretty big news. Like Saint Seiya Lost Dimension actually ended today. So even more anime news, I didn't know that there was a new Angel Beats manga spin-off that started in 2023, and now this June the first volume, the first Tankobon volume release was released in Japan. It's called Angel Beats Tabisuru Tenshi-chan, and apparently, according to the summary, it's about Kanade. Kanade is in the real world or something, and she's traveling to find a certain someone. She meets with people that look like the people who appeared in the original anime. And yeah, I never heard about this, but it actually started in 2023. It's kind of a sequel, I guess, because it's like Kanade, like after the ending, and she's looking for Otonashi, I guess. So yeah, I didn't know they made this, so I'm gonna try to check it out one day. Earlier at the beginning of this episode, I was talking about Angel Beats, about Heaven Burns Red, and actually, Heaven Burns Red, for its first anniversary, they did a special collab event with Angel Beats, which was like a continuation of the story, like a sequel, but also a spin-off, and it was focusing on Miyuki, the purple girl in Girls Bond the Dead, and they revealed like a lot of stuff on her. Like it was a root from the game that were cancelled. Basically, Maeda Jun picked the roots from the cancelled Angel Beats games and he put it for a new event in Heaven Burns Red. And in the second anniversary, they did the same thing. This time they picked not Hisako, Hisako, I think is her name, the girl, the guitarist in Girl's Dead Monster. The second anniversary Van Burns Red event was another Angel Beats event, and it was focusing on her, and it revealed her backstory and stuff. And again, I'm pretty sure it's stuff that was supposed to be in the cancelled Angel Beats game that Maeda Jun recycled and put it in Heaven Burns Red. So yeah, there's still a lot of new Angel Beats stuff these days. I didn't know that
were doing this manga. I gotta check it out. But yeah, if you are a fan of Angel Beats, you should definitely check out Heaven Burns Red because there's a lot of stuff in it, and you can also play as Kanade and Yurippe. So I guess the English version will probably do the Angel Beats events at some point. So you should keep an eye on that as well. And more anime news. Today, the new G Gundam spin-off thing was published. It's a side story actually, so it's not a new anime project. Like the thing that was teased like a few months ago, and everyone was hyped. Like maybe there's going to be a new G Gundam thing. No, it's a side story novel, and it's published in several episodes. And the first episode was released today. They made a special official site for it. A special official site for it. The writer of this new spin-off story, side story, is Imagawa, the director of the G Gundam anime. Imagawa Yasuhiro, who also directed the Giant Robo OVAs and the Shin Mazinger remake from the 2010. Yeah, he's a really, really good scenarist and really good, really legendary director. He was also the director of the first episodes of the Shin Getter Robo Armageddon OVAs. So yeah, he's the one directly writing this, so it's definitely going to be interesting. And to tell you the truth, I actually never watched G Gundam as well. I really gotta watch it. Just like I was saying about Nadeshiko earlier, it is one of the classics I've never watched. I would rather watch it with someone from my family than watch it alone, so I can't really watch it alone, so I still haven't watched it, but I really need to. And I'm sure my nieces will like this, so I gotta show it to them at some point. Because we watched Gundam Seed together, so I'm pretty sure they will like G Gundam as well, so yeah. Hopefully I'll be able to watch this soon, so I'll be able to read this new side story as well. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the official G Gundam site was renewed as well with a brand new illustration. And there was also a live stream today with Domon Seiyu Seki Tomokazu. I did not have the time to watch it, but he was talking about the series, about his memories about the series. It's definitely super interesting. So one day, hopefully, I'll be able to watch this when I have the time. So you should definitely check it out if you can. Yeah, Seki Tomakazu is one of my favorite seiyuu. Like he was also Sagara Sosuke in Full Metal Panic, which is the namesake of this vlog and of these videos, because Full Metal Fukumi is from Full Metal Panic. And Seki Tomakazu was also like tons of characters. It was also Izake in Gundam Seed. So yeah, I really like him. He was also Ariji in Mugen no Frontier Exceed, the Super Botwar spin-off on Nintendo DS, the precursor to Project Cross Zone. So he did a tons of really good roles I like. So yeah, I really gotta watch G Gundam one day. I just wanted to add this. And this is the last thing I wanted to bring up. This is far more serious news. So there's one of the biggest unions in France for game developers and for game workers. They announced that several, like at least two big French gaming companies are putting pressure on them because they dared to say that people shouldn't vote for the far right in the upcoming legislative elections. There's going to be the second round of the elections this Sunday. Sadly, the far right parties have gotten a lot of advance, a lot of ground, so everyone is kind of worried. Thankfully, you have a lot of artists, a lot of game developers, a lot of people, a lot of streamers as well talking about it and how important it is to vote against the far right. And basically, this union for game developers in France, they made some call for people to be against fascism, and like, just read the tweet, like 2024 French parliamentary elections, several big French studios are exercising pressure on our representatives after we displayed the following posters. And they're calling to us for stop against sexual violence, transphobia, racism, like normal stuff, like anything against discriminations against people with disabilities, etc. Like anything people like minimum using their brain, a minimum would agree with, right? And yet, look, Uh, so these companies, including True Parisian Studios, insist that we take down those posters. So yeah, they published some posters against the fascism and against the far right. Yeah, and some are even resorting to blackmail by threatening to pull off from current mandatory, as in by law, yearly negotiations. So yeah, the union is getting pressured to tell them to, hey, shut up, don't talk about politics, don't talk about the far right rising, like just do your union job, like don't talk about the rising far right in France, even though it's a very, very alarming issue. So they explained that employees were supposedly shocked by the posters. This is crazy because like imagine saying a poster saying, hey, maybe being racist isn't a good thing, right? Imagine being shocked about this. Like, I don't get these guys, but to be honest, I'm not surprised either, because sadly in France there is a very, very deeply rooted culture of racism. There's structural racism in France, from the institutions, from the police, from the politicians, from the media, etc. So of course it's reflected in French companies, and of course it's reflected in French gaming companies as well. And I'm sure these last 10 years you've seen the scandals like in Ubisoft, like all the sexual harassment cases at Ubisoft, like all the problems at Quantic Dream, etc. So there's nothing surprising about this, sadly. So yeah, the union is they say that they're not calling out the companies yet, because so this is the reality of this so-called leading cultural industry, where companies, under the cover of benevolence and political neutrality, are perfectly content with the possibility of the far right coming to power. Out of our own benevolence, we are not naming those companies, who are also trying to present themselves as progressive just yet. We hope that they realize the shamefulness of their actions and are reminded that we still have union rights in this country. It goes without saying that we will leave these posters in place, since they are politically necessary and legally valid. The far right is the enemy of all workers. It is everyone's duty, and that includes unions, to fight it. So yeah, it's pretty, like, sadly, I'm really not surprised that some French game companies, leaders, and higher ups are against this, because yeah, they're racist as well. So sadly, yeah. Now this is the final thing I wanted to bring up, I think. So this episode lasted for around 50 minutes. I think I've talked about Heaven Burns Red a little bit too much at the beginning. So yeah, I still gotta try to reduce the length of these episodes. But yeah, thanks for watching, and remember to check the blog, see the link in the descriptions. Remember to support me on Coffee if you can. Please check it out. Thank you. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about the news in the comments, and yeah, bye bye.